Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. The Be Fulfilled Journal helps you be more honest with yourself and with others and be more open to handling things you've avoided dealing with for years. It's a 12-week online and journal program that helps you identify and eliminate things you do that are causing you stress and live in more gratitude and joy. It was actually developed by a long-term friend of mine who got sober in 2008, and he's put together a great deal just for my listeners. You get the 300-page hardcover journal and access to the 12-week video program online, plus free shipping, plus membership in a private Facebook support group with others going through the program, plus a 5-day mini course showing you how to let go of stuff that's draining your energy, plus a 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. To start your journey and get all the bonuses, go to BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. That's BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. I got one of my New York homies on the show. We're with the one and only Ben Smith. And before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Scott Hamilton from Small Stone Records. Thanks for hooking us up. Ben is yes, did I mess that up?
My professional rock name is Benjamin Howard Smith.
Benjamin Howard Smith. Sorry, busting my balls.
Okay.
Let's see, 27 seconds into the interview.
You fucked it up and didn't do your research.
Benjamin Benjamin Howard Smith. Okay. Should I call you Benjamin Howard throughout the whole interview? Ben. Or can I just call you Ben? Okay.
When your name's Ben Smith, you got to dress it up.
Yeah. Okay. So, but Ben's an interesting guy and is a great player, and his band, The Brought Low, is really rocking. If you like, how do I describe you guys? Like great British blues music, man. They really rock. Born in 1970, the youngest of 4 kids in Forest Hills, Queens. His dad was a playwright who worked in magazines, and his mother was a novelist who taught Sunday school. He grew up with music all around his house. His older brothers played in bands when he was a little kid. They did cover bands, which included the Rock of the Day, which is like the Stones, Deep Purple. And Ben sang church and choir, which so many musicians I've interviewed got their start playing music at church, man. When he was 9, his brother took him to see the Who's, The Kids Are All Right, in the movies. And after that, he decided he wanted to be a guitarist. Started taking guitar lessons in 6th grade. Kind of lost steam, but he got serious again when he was 15. He learned all the classic rock stuff of that day, and he fell under the sway of punk rock, which was real big during that period of time in New York City, especially. And first serious band that he was in was called Sweet Diesel. They put out 3 records in the mid-90s, and they toured a lot, noisy punk rock. After that, he was in a band called the Kill Van Kull. They put out a record and did some touring. In 99, Benjamin Howard Smith formed The Brought Low. Was sick of playing punk rock and wanted to do something more soulful, more bluesy. You guys are really a good band, man. I love your music. Was also sick of screaming. That is a wise move, sir. Started singing, writing real songs. He wanted to play conventional guitar solos. The Brought Low have put out 3 records and a digital EP. They've toured 3 times and done shows up and down the East Coast and out to the Midwest. Took a 3-year break in 2015, and they've started playing again and would like to record a new album. Did everybody give you grief and you're like, we're putting the band back together? Was that like...
Nah, not at all. People were psyched.
That's
really, it was a nice thing.
That's good, Mel. You're a great band. I was really happy when I heard that. Personal stuff. He's got a really interesting career background. Worked at music websites starting in the late 90s. He was with SonicNet and then later VH1. At VH1, he was a senior digital producer for VH1 Classic and The Metal Show. He interviewed loads of his childhood heroes, and he hosted That Metal Gear, which interviewed musical guests from that metal show and then asked them about their influences and equipment. Now, this was really cool. You should check this out. He produced a very cool short video for VH1 called Tommi Iommi, The History of Metal. It's an animated short video. It's very good. I'm going to say the name of it. Go write it down and check it out on YouTube. Tommi Iommi, The History of Metal. The story was Ben's idea. He oversaw production. He composed and performed all the original music. It's just like a story of Tommi Iommi and losing his finger, and it was really cool. Who was the voice? Was that Tony's? You interviewed Tony, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that was Tony. Yeah,
that's really cool.
That was, when we were getting into it. My friend Jeff Baumgartner, who's the executive producer of that metal show, I was like, Jeff, you've like met Tony and like you want to come do this? We basically like called him on his cell phone from a recording studio, and I was like, Jeff, how do I do this? Like, how do I get this story out of him? And Jeff was like, I'll just come and do the thing. And I've interviewed a lot of people, but Jeff was really instrumental in like coaxing the story out of Tony.
That's awesome.
And then we kind of had the audio, and it was, it sounded like a cell phone call overseas. And we were like, but once we started like putting it together, we really kind of loved the way the audio sounded, because it was like, I don't know, it just made it real and kind of grimy and authentic and all those things that, I think we want a lot of content to be in the world,
I didn't think one time anything about the audio. It was extremely appropriate. I wouldn't have thought of it until you just mentioned it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Dude, you got to give me Tony's cell number after we get off this, because I'm going to call him and get his ass on my show.
I don't have it anymore.
Well, give me Jeff Baumgartner's cell number. I have to go there and beat it out of him. All
right.
Anyway, check that out. It's a really great short animated video on YouTube. Tommi Iommi, The History of Metal. These days, Ben is a freelance writer doing a lot of true crime stuff for Oxygen.com and reviewing music documentaries for Decider. And you have kids too, don't you?
Yes, I have a 16-year-old daughter.
Oh, man. Are you in the throes of it, or is she like calm?
She's pretty awesome, but sometimes she's a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah, that's difficult, man.
Including this past week.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I know that's tough. Mine is 19. We're out of it, but it was like really, I had her in puberty and my wife in menopause, and I would fucking come in my office and close the door and pray for safety. So, anyway, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I was really looking forward to talking with you. I love your band.
Hey,
you're a super
my pleasure,
guy.
man.
So it seems like music, writing, and just arts and creativity in general was really all around you growing up. I was wondering if any of your siblings also got into the arts or something creative.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my brothers both played. My oldest brother, Dave, played keyboards and, was recently in a band. And he works in sort of like the computer field. And then my brother, John, played in bands in college and then became a video editor. And he actually edited a lot of the Unpluggeds.
Wow. So, that's cool.
He edited Nirvana Unplugged and Oasis Unplugged, and did a lot of videos. He did edited the Cars You Might Think video.
Wow, that was a great video.
Yeah, so I mean, he did all that, and he had like a little shop that was like a post production shop. But it was funny when he turned like 40. And I should also say, like, I'm a surprise baby. I'm one of 4. But I'm 6 years younger than my closest sibling.
That's not too bad, really.
No, but, hold on. My sister's 6 years older than me, but then my brother John's 10 years older than me. And my brother Dave is 12 years older than me.
Okay.
So, like, when I was going into first grade, my oldest sibling was going into college.
Yeah, okay, I get you.
But John, when he turned 40, he, like, started playing again. He hadn't played for years, and he actually had a band called the Second Fiddles that were, like, an acoustic kind of old-timey blues and bordering on bluegrass and old school country band, and they played out, and they actually like got a bit of a following and would play festivals and stuff. And so I mean, and my sister was in the choir and still sings in the choir in her church up in Maine, and it's just like a house where, I mean, it's funny when people talk about how like they got into the arts to be rebellious, whereas I'm always like, for me, it was expected. It was like, no, you better learn how to play an instrument. Like, why aren't you doing something creative? And, you know, my parents were always very encouraging of that. And also, like, you know, because my dad was working on plays and up until he died. And he died in 2002. And nothing that got huge, you know, little productions, and some would get, like, you know, in sort of these theater workshop places. But he always worked, you know, and it was like, Dad kind of showed me this way that it was like, you work. I mean, you know, I saw like an Onion headline that kind of made fun of this. I forget what it said, but it was basically like, you know, man realizes he can pursue his passion every day after work. But it's like, you know, you got to pay the bills. So with my dad, it was always like, yeah, don't stop doing art. Like, don't stop playing music, but you got to pay the rent too. And so, you know, it was always, I never thought that it was like, because I didn't hit it big when I was 29, which is kind of what you have to do. Like, you know, if you're really going to make a living at it.
Yeah. More of the conventional. Yeah.
I was never like, you know, I'm going to stop playing music. And B, I never felt that it's like, because, you know, it wasn't my full-time thing, it invalidated what I did. I think those are these like kind of expectations that people have that are, you know, like, why is that the expectation, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good that you've done that, and you seem like really fulfilled with all that stuff that you've done. And you're doing a lot of the same stuff that your dad did with writing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny, right?
Yeah, it is. It was interesting.
It wasn't so much intentional, but it's like there are times where I'm like, oh my God, you know, it's like you turn into your father a lot of times.
Yeah.
And you know, my dad was a great dad, so it's like I'm very happy to have turned into my father.
Yeah, that's great, man. Very cool, man. I'm happy for you. What were you doing, speaking of work-wise, in your mid-20s as you started forming bands?
Well, you know, Sweet Diesel really formed out of when I was like, I don't know, 20, I guess. I transferred to the New School from I went to Boston University for a couple years, and it was just
the New School for Social Research.
Yeah, basically like my last year in high school, I like got in my first band. That was
where'd you get to high school?
Hillcrest High School, Jamaica, Queens.
Okay.
Public school, aka Chillcrest.
Is that what they called it?
Yeah. In the 90s, it became the number one most violent high school in Queens.
I was going to say Jamaica I know it was like kind of like the Bronx in Queens, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, dude, It was rough.
I know, and I was because I had some guys from my high school that went to Jamaica that came from Jamaica, and then I had a couple of dudes. I'm like, really preppy white dude. He's from Jamaica. And I said, no, he's Jamaica States. I'm like,
Jamaica State.
Okay, yeah, different world.
Jamaica, Hillcrest was like Jamaica. It was, it was not, you know, I was talking to someone when people are like, well, what was your high school like? I just say, because this explains it all. I say, oh, we had metal detectors.
Yeah, that's, wait a minute. Do you know Ronnie Drayton by any chance?
I don't know if I do.
Great player. He grew up a little older. He's like my age, maybe a little older than me, and he grew up in Jamaica. And he was pretty rough there. So South Jamaica, actually. Yeah.
We were like right on the border between South Jamaica and Briarwood.
Yeah.
But it was also like the high school was on this hill, along with Jamaica High School, and then Thomas Edison, which was a vocational school, like
trade school.
Yeah. And so it's like, you know, you had this like. One day of the week, the guys from Jamaica would come over to Hillcrest to beat people up, and then another day of the week, the guys from Hillcrest would go over to Edison to beat people up, and then so it's like, yeah.
It's so funny, like that, how there's just a certain, what is it? What would you call it? Behavior, or just the pattern, and it's like you accept these. They're so dysfunctional, but it's like, you know, it's cool because this is the way it is. It's weird in a New York thing, isn't it?
You know, I'm very, sanguine, is that the right word? I don't know. You know, I'm
they're using SAT words. What does that mean, even?
Sanguine. I think it means like retiring with a little bit of bitterness. I don't know. Maybe I have it wrong. I'm very ambivalent about the whole celebration what we call old New York.
Yeah.
And how dangerous it was, and that it was like this great place. Because I always say, like, old New York wasn't that cool when my house got robbed.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it wasn't that cool when my uncle got mugged on the, E train. It wasn't that cool when a dude pulled a gun on me, or when my, like, sister's best friend almost got raped.
Yeah.
But we definitely all have amazing stories that people who didn't grow up in that world, are like, I mean, they're good stories, man.
Yeah.
Like, no doubt.
Yeah, they are good stories.
And everyone, it's like, I think it's like, I don't know what the age cutoff is, but everyone of a certain age that grew up in New York City, and I'm not sure this is still the case, but everyone of a certain age who grew up in New York City is like the star in their own movie. Like,
yeah, man, you're right.
And everyone's a character.
Yeah.
Everyone's a character in their own movie, and it's like, I think it is a certain, like, just because kids now, it's so safe, and it isn't, and a lot of the things that were those edges are just, they've been, they're not around. But I mean,
well, they're not out anymore. They're inside on their phones or playing video games. It's a little bit different, like, you can't, like, get mugged if you're in your bedroom talking to your friend on the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just different.
Well, my wife will always be, when I start telling my sailor's tales of, she's like, yeah, well, do you want your daughter to go to that school? I was like, God, no. God, no.
Well, cool, man. So in your 20s, sorry, what were you doing work-wise?
Yeah, we got thrown off. So, like, Boston, I couldn't find any bands. I didn't really like Boston. I came back and I was going to school in the city, and I hooked up with the guys that formed Sweet Diesel, and we were, right place, right time. It was just after the kind of Nirvana explosion, so there was a lot of labels looking for bands, and there was still a pretty vibrant independent, there was still like a really vibrant independent music scene. So we signed to an independent label, Blackout Records, and started touring. So the funny thing is, when I started touring, I was still living with my parents.
Sure, of course, you're a kid.
And it's also like, that's another like New York City thing. You live with your parents until you like have enough money to move out, and it's a better thing. So I mean, all the guys I grew up with went to college in the city and lived with their parents.
Yeah, I went to Baruch.
On 23rd Street. Like, why would I move out? I got my ma here, and that kind of stuff. And but I was working odd jobs in the early days of Sweet Diesel, and Sweet Diesel toured a good bit, man. I mean, we were out on the road at least 2 to 3 times every year, and we were around for 8 years. And towards the end, I started working on the internet. My friend had a job. Actually, the original bassist in Sweet Diesel, Zakk, was working at SonicNet, and he brought me in to like moderate chats and stuff like that. And then I was doing marketing work for them, which was basically farming emails.
What do you mean farming emails?
Like, it's totally illegal now. I mean, I was like building spam.
Oh, you were building email lists, like harvesting. Yeah.
Because I would go to, I mean, if we were going to do a chat with Oasis, I would go to every Britpop band fan site, which there were a plethora of back then, and just grab the emails of the webmasters. Yeah. And then if we had someone related, we'd email that list. And we were spamming people. Yeah. But doing that, eventually I started being like, I've got a background, and I had a background working in magazines through my dad, and I did that sort of in college. So I started being like, really, I'm a writer. I was a writing major, and there's more I can do for you.
Did you graduate from the New School eventually?
Yeah. I actually went to Eugene Lang College at the New School, which is their graduate degree program.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
So eventually that's how I became like a web producer, and, was doing that for them. And yeah, that's basically it.
Very
but
cool.
I was working at SonicNet at the time of the last Sweet Diesel tour, which was early '98. And then even when Kill Van Kull was touring, I was back on the road with another band by autumn '98, and I was still working there then.
You always played lead and sang, and did most of the writing?
Well, Sweet Diesel kind of started, and I was just the guitarist, and we had a lead singer. But my buddy Nat, he never really liked just being the lead singer, so I taught him how to play guitar.
Oh, cool.
And so we were like, and then I started singing songs. So then we became like 2 guitarists, 2 singers, which kind of, I think, gave us an edge on a lot of bands. And, we could do 2 vocals, and then we could, sing differently. And then in Kill Van Kull, that was also a 4-piece with another guitarist singer, so we would trade off. And then Brought Low was the first band where I was like, nah, man, I'm gonna be the singer.
Do you smoke, or did you smoke cigarettes?
Way back in the day. Because
your voice is so deep, yet when you sing, your voice is really great, man. I mean, it's like, because I had spoken to you, and I'm like, it's like the words and the music don't match. I'm like, wow, this guy's your singing voice is amazing. Not that your speaking voice isn't good. It's just totally different.
Well, it's a different one. Well, it's funny, in Sweet Diesel, I would scream. I mean, it was punk rock. And
yeah.
I was, and I was sick of that, man. I was like, and it hurt my voice. And it was also like, you're 30 years old and you're screaming your brains out. And I'm like, this isn't really me anymore. I mean, that's a big part of it. I mean, I guess I was 28 when I started writing a lot of those songs, but again, like I'm still the same person, but I've changed and I want to do different things. And it was really a big leap of faith with the singing too, because I had never sung like that before, and I didn't know if it was any good. And I was kind of scared that people were going to be like, dude, you suck.
No, far from it, man.
But then I just went for it, and I gained some, I don't know how I gained confidence. I found the place where I could sing, which was that kind of middle Ronnie Van Zant, Greg Allman range.
Yeah. Your voice is really smooth though, man. I know. I mean, I was shocked, not shocked, but usually you don't have a guy singing that smoothly. It's just really great, man.
Yeah, well, it's like my favorite singers are like Otis Redding and Graham Parsons, and so I like those sweet melodies, you know. And I grew up on. It's funny. I'm playing a gig this weekend, in a like Beatles tribute band. My friend has a monthly party called F-Bomb, which I've played a few of them, and every month it's a different band. But
where is this? In Brooklyn?
It's at a place called Arlene's Grocery.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that place. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and
wait, that's been around for a long time, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, like 20 years at least.
Yeah.
But they asked me to play Drive My Car, which is in D, and it's like that's my key. I can't sing in, like, for some reason. Like if you go through like all 3 Brought Low records, there's one song in D.
That's it.
And it's like, but at the practice, I was like, I don't really sing in this key. And my friend Morgan was like, yeah, but you sing high with your normal band. And I was like, yeah, but I sing high in A.
Man, and let's see how small this world is. It's not Morgan McDaniel, is it?
It is not.
Okay. That would have been really weird. Hang on a second. Let's see if that's the guy's name. I just met this guy. This is, Morgan McDaniel. Okay. Plays for a band called Mirror Queen.
Oh, yeah. I know the Mirror Queen guys.
Yeah, they're a good band, man. And it's funny. God, it's such a guitar is like, I'll tell my wife, it's like weird. I talk to this guy. It's like 1 degree. Everybody's like 1 degree of separation, I think.
Sure. Especially for those of us that have been doing it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've known Kenny from Mirror Queen since the 90s, since Sweet Diesel.
Yeah. Well, he had his own band, like whatever his last name was, right?
Right. He had a band called Chrysor. And,
Right, Chrysor.
Yeah. They would have played the same kind of circuit as Sweet Diesel. So, yeah. I mean, even if I had stopped playing music, like, it would still be like, oh, yeah, I know Kenny. I know this guy. I know that guy. So.
Did you play any clubs in the city? Brought Low.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's funny. During the Sweet Diesel era, all the clubs were downtown Manhattan. That's where you played. Even though our first show actually was at this place, Keep Refrigerated in Williamsburg, but that was like a real outlier place. And right towards the end of Sweet Diesel, halfway through Sweet Diesel, everyone started moving to Brooklyn, like to Williamsburg and places like that. And then right at the end, that's when clubs started opening up out there. And in fact, the last Sweet Diesel show before we broke up in 98 was a block party on North 7th Street. And by the time Brought Low was playing, at first it was still, most of the clubs were in the city, but within like 5 years, everything was in Brooklyn.
Everything cleared out, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is. I mean, we played Arlene's last week, but that was probably, besides the fact that we hadn't played for 3 years before that, but even then it was like, the last 5 years that Brought Low, we almost never played Manhattan. It was always Brooklyn. It was always Hanks or Magnetic Field on Atlantic Ave, or then clubs in Williamsburg and Greenpoint.
How did it go when you played at Arlene's, the first show?
Oh, well, that was the second show since we started playing shows again. The first show back was in November, and that was because the old Hanks was closing, and my best friend Lee is the booking agent there, and he was like, oh, I'd love to get you in there one last time before we close the old place. They've since reopened in downtown Brooklyn, we're playing there in May, but the first show back was the November show. It was great. We sold the place out. It was awesome. We had practiced a lot, so we were pretty good. And show at Arlene's was great. A little bit of a different crowd for us, but
in what way?
Yeah. Oh, there's just little different pockets of bands. I mean, I in a sense, I'd say like we're more of a Brooklyn band. That's more our territory, and a little bit more on the kind of post indie rock side of things. And I would say like the Arlene's crowd was a little bit more a Manhattan crowd, and a little bit more a lot of guys who sort of paid their dues on kind of the metal scene a little bit more.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Not a metal show. I mean, all the bands are playing the same variation of like hard 70s rock and riffs.
I'm so glad to see a resurgence of that music, because it's the stuff I love personally. I've interviewed a ton of really great psychedelic and stoner bands. Many of them are actually in like Sweden and Northern Europe.
Yeah.
The Netherlands. There's some great bands out there, man. Yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah. Well, they still like rock in Europe.
Yeah, they do. How come you guys just stopped playing? Just curious. Initially, like were you raising families or?
No, I've been raising families since 2003.
Yeah.
I think it was sort of like we were just playing the same songs over and over. We hadn't written a new song in a couple years, and it was kind of reaching diminishing returns in terms of like the joy you get playing music.
Yeah.
It wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't going, which is a valid complaint. It's like the shows were like the same
shows,
2 clubs playing with the same 3 bands, and it just wasn't fun. But here's the thing, and here's why it was like easy to like pull it back together after 3 years. Is like, I'm sure like the week after I'm sure like every weekend after whatever was the last show we played, I was in a bar with Bob, our bassist, having a beer.
Okay, so you guys were all buddies still. It was mutual.
We were never like, and there was never like, we never had a discussion like, let's go on hiatus. We never had a discussion like, let's break up. I just stopped booking shows.
Yeah, okay. And everybody was good with it.
Yeah, and like within 2 months, I was like trying to get something new going on with Nick, our drummer. So it was never like, again, it was never like, there was never discussion, and there was never a falling out. Like, they were still like two of my best friends. I just stopped booking Brought Low shows, and you know, it was so once it was like, and you know, that then led to like 3 years of like trying to get maybe some other thing going on, jamming with this guy, jamming with the other guy, jamming with this girl, like, and it was very hard to find musicians of the, you know, caliber that I like playing with in the age range where we all have a kind of similar view on things that were like dependable.
Yeah.
And so once we like, I think we started practicing 6 months before that show in November. And I think it was just like, I don't even think the show was booked. It was just like, you know what, let's get together.
That's a long time. So you guys were just, well, it sounded like you just needed a break.
Yeah, we just needed like a break. And from the first time we got back together, it was like, oh, this is what I was missing the past 3 years. You know, and just that cohesion, and then, you know, the comfort of playing, and, you know, again, the three of us never stopped being friends in those 3 years. Like, I swear to God, like every Friday I'm hanging out with Bob somewhere, pretty much. And, you know, if I was like trying to like do some different musical thing, it's like Nick's the only drummer I really, you know, I mean, drummers are hard to find, and Nick's always my go-to guy. Like, hey, I got some songs I want to work out. Why don't you meet me? Let's jam on them. So again, there was never like the band's broken up. It was never like this dramatic thing. You know, we were always still. I mean, and quite honestly, like that's the same. I don't know. That's always how I've lived it. Like, when Sweet Diesel broke up, I was hanging out with all those guys the next week. Like, there was never like fuck you. Like, you know, it was just like, yeah, I don't want to do this band anymore. Like,
you don't seem like that guy. The fuck you. You seem like you're pretty mellow. Or is that true, or is that a wrong read?
I am very mellow.
Yeah, you seem like like very amiable. You know, like you're not going to piss people off, and you're not going to get real pissed off.
Yeah, I'm an Earth sign. You know,
an Earth sign. What is? Oh, okay. What sign are you? What's your sign?
I'm actually a Taurus, which is like
stubborn. Supposedly,
stubborn. Yeah. I am stubborn. But I'm not like a needless drama, below my top type of person.
Yeah, you seem pretty easy to get along with. Man, let me ask you a question about when you were hosting that Metal Gear. Tell me some of the funniest, strangest, or coolest interviews that you did.
Well,
without, I mean, like, I'm not looking for gossip. I'm just looking for funny stuff, really more.
Oh, I don't know. I'll gossip. I got nothing. They already fired me.
I had someone on the other day, right? And they were talking about, you know, they opened for Hall & Oates, and they said, and I'll tell you right now, that John Oates is the nicest guy you'd ever met. Don't fucking ask me about the other guy, but John Oates is. I was like, whoa, okay, man.
Wow. You know, it was very interesting. So, you know, I did come from kind of like this punk rock background. And once I started, you know, interviewing these metal guys, you know, and I definitely like listened to metal growing up too, but it's like once I got playing in bands, it was all kind of like independent. You know, the punk rock is this sort of blanket term for everyone that was like playing loud guitars that wasn't metal.
Yeah.
The metal guys, you know, and in the world of punk rock, there's a lot of really bitter people. And, you know, a lot of these bands didn't make money when they were first around, and now are only making music, you know, making money on reunion tours, or they like slugged it out for years, and then, maybe got some major label deal after Nirvana. There's a lot of like bitter people in the punk rock world, and even in the independent, indie rock world. These metal guys, almost all of them, are like high on life, because they're successful. because it's like I interviewed Zakk Wylde. It's like, Zakk Wylde was like playing with Ozzy when he was like 21.
Yeah, he was a kid,
and he was a kid. This guy's like, he's had the life of Riley, and he knows it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he was a great interview, and just, I know from people that have also dealt with him, I know he's apparently like I guess when he was still drinking, you could get bad Zakk, but I mean, he was a sweetheart. I'll tell you the weirdest thing, and I don't want to bring up politics, but the one of my best interviews was Ted Nugent.
Yeah, you know what? I've interviewed several guitar players who've played with him. I interviewed Dave Amato from REO Speedwagon. He played with Ted for 3 years, and I interviewed Rich Eckhart, who actually plays with Toby Keith, but he's played with Ted, and they're actually good friends. And both of those guys, both of them, especially Dave, he lived in Ted's house for a while. He said, look, I know he gets a bad rap. I've never seen anything like that. He woke up every day. He made me breakfast. He was a wonderful, loving father and husband. He goes, and I know he's, the politics thing, but all I could tell you as a human being, he was extremely kind. So, I think a lot of that is for show that he does. It
is, which is also kind of, in a way, terrible.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's like,
it's like, again, I don't want to talk politics, but
no, definitely not.
let me just make it pretty simple that I am pretty much diametrically opposed to everything Ted Nugent talks about.
Sure.
I mean, I don't want to take away like every gun in the United States, but I mean, I don't know, some small degree of regulation. Like you can't tell me that. Regardless, like I don't want to talk policy things, but like again, I'm kind of like your New York liberal,
right?
And I would, when I interviewed Ted Nugent, we talked about guitars and rock and roll, and his passion for those two things is, really inspiring and contagious, and he just sort of radiates positivity when you talk about that stuff. And I think the whole thing, again, regardless of your political beliefs, I think calling for like the execution of the president of the United States is wrong. Even with this current president, who I'm not a fan of. But like to say like he should be killed, no, he shouldn't. Like, what are we talking about here? But I spoke to this guy.
You're a punk rocker. What do you mean, man?
Well,
well, because one thing you said, it was funny when you were talking, you said I stopped playing punk rock because I was 30 years old. And I was thinking to myself, the only way you can do that at that age is like, if you have to be like not an anarchist, but you really got to get behind that ethos and really feel that way. And most of those feelings that you have that are aligned with that do tend to fall away when you realize, man, I got to work. I got to make a living. I got to raise it. Like that ideology isn't always compatible with the rest of living.
Sure. But I mean, I think there's plenty of things. And, I was tired of playing punk rock music, and I was tired of the punk rock scene, but I wasn't tired of listening to it, and I wasn't tired of, punk rock's one of these things. It's like, it means different things to different people. To me, it meant like always sort of questioning authority, not only opposing it, but it's like, to me, like punk rock is about like, do things yourself, be self-reliant, don't be fooled, it's like, don't be fooled, question everything, question yourself. It's sort of like, and that stuff that's still relevant to me. But like, what I wasn't into was playing like 4 chords and pretending I wasn't a good guitarist and hanging out in an unheated church basement with a bunch of 18-year-old kids that I had nothing in common with, which is what it was like, getting, I mean, talk about like being the oldest guy in the room. Of course, that was before like the surge of every punk and hardcore band that's ever existed reuniting, so it was like, but yeah.
You know what? I think I asked you this, but I asked you if you know Chris Traynor. Did you the one who said you were friends with his sister?
Yeah, I know his sister Shannon.
Okay. Because he's from Queens and he played in.
We have many mutual friends. I don't really know him personally.
Yeah, because he played at Orange 9mm and then he played with Helmet. Yeah,
Sweet Diesel would play with bands like Orange 9, though when we played with them, I don't think Chris was in the band anymore.
Yeah, he left and then he went with Helmet and then he was there for like 1.5, 2 records or something like that.
Right.
It's funny, I interviewed Paige, man. He is like, that guy is brilliant. It is like, it was really interesting. What he likes doing is like, he goes, when he's in Germany and stuff, he goes to everything. He's really into classical music, which was interesting. That's
really?
It was really interesting talking to him. It was like he wasn't that guy, the punk guy. He was like,
well, but he was always, I mean, like even back in the day, like the complaints about Helmet was always that they looked like tennis players. Like, and there's a feeling sort of in the scene that like they had sort of come out of nowhere, and people were like, no one really knew them, and then they were this band playing that scene, but I tell you, early Helmet, man, they were unstoppable force.
Great band, man.
Yeah, I saw him at CB's before Meantime came out, and it was devastating.
Yeah.
It was so loud and so tight, and like no one was tight like that back then.
Yeah,
aside from maybe like aside from metal bands, but like no one in like the indie punk scene, the noise rock, whatever you want to call it, like there was no one that was like, doing that stuff.
Yeah, well, he's a pretty musically educated guy, so I would imagine that he ran a tight ship music, and his voice. I said to him, I said, "Dude, you still sing like that? What are you, the bionic throat or something?"
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I don't want to talk about you, but it was weird. Zakk Wylde, who else?
God, I mean, again, Ted Nugent was a great interview. Judas Priest, even though that wasn't that Metal Gear, they were great guys. And
who'd you speak with there?
It was Rob, Glenn, and
KK.
Who's the new guy? No, KK was Richie.
Yeah,
Richie. And I mean, it's fine. We're just everyone's talking about the dirt. I interviewed Mick Mars. He was a good guy. Alex Skolnick, super good guy.
Yeah, I interviewed Alex. He's great.
John Five was a super good guy. Lita Ford was like awesome, and she was actually the first video interview I did for that Metal Gear, and so I was pretty nervous, and and I like the Runaways too, so it was pretty cool. It was a pretty great way to like start doing that, and these people just have the stories. Again, as someone who is a storyteller and a writer and loves trading tales, she had great stories. And she was talking about one thing. She was talking about the kind of guitar picks she uses. And she goes, I started playing these guitar picks. They kind of look like a baseball plate, like the home base plate.
Yeah. That's weird.
Like with squared sides. And she was like, I play these because Richie Blackmore gave me one once. And she was like, I had one of these picks and I played it the entire time when the Runaways were on tour with the Ramones.
Wow.
It's just like, again, like you get into this stuff where it's like, that's amazing. Or it's funny, like I interviewed Leslie West and he was kind of salty. Like he sort of seemed like in not a great mood or whatever. But I asked him, if you could have any guitar in the world, what would it be? Whether it's Jimmy Page's #1 Les Paul, or whether it's a brand new Charvel or whatever it is, if you could have any guitar in the world, and he goes, it's like, one time I was hanging out with Jack Bruce in the 70s, and it was me and Corky Lang, and Jack Bruce gave Corky a Rolls Royce for his birthday, and I said, well, what are you going to give me? And he gave me the bass that he played in Cream that was painted like Clapton's.
Yeah, the SG he had.
I was like, really? He just gave it? And I think it was a bass. I think it was a bass 6. I don't think it was like a Gibson EB. I think it was like a bass 6, but it was painted like the same way as the painted Clapton SG. He's like, yeah, I wish I could have that back, because then I
sold it for a bag.
Yeah, he's like, I gave it to Ampeg to fix, and then they never returned it to me. And I'm like, yeah, well, you probably didn't pay your bill for like, a back line or something. They're like, yeah, we're keeping this. But, again, it's like, wow, you had that.
Yeah.
So these guys all had like the amazing stories. And, another really interesting thing about these guys was also, especially like the older guys, was, we think metal guys like metal music and stuff, and they do. But when I was talking to Glenn Tipton about guitars, he was like, oh, Rory Gallagher.
Yeah.
Rory Gallagher was like the man. Seeing Rory Gallagher's taste in small clubs in Birmingham was the most amazing thing, which I wouldn't necessarily, pin that on him, or Peter Green from Fleetwood Mac. And it's also like, I love those guys, so I loved hearing that. Or I remember Mick Mars. I was just telling this story the other day because everyone's talking about the Dirt. I asked Mick Mars, who his favorite guitar solo was, and he said Mike Bloomfield.
Yeah.
The Electric Flag and stuff like that. So, these guys, they're more interesting than I initially thought they would be, and they're by and large pretty psyched on life because they've had pretty good careers.
It's fun. Leslie is one of my favorite guitar players. His tone, I just love his music, and
he's kind of, on some days he's the best.
He really is.
Pure expression and an amazing tone and tasteful but passionate. Yeah.
And I've tried to get him on the show, and his manager has just never, ever returned my calls. I know he was sick. I don't know if he's doing interviews anymore, stuff like that. But if you're listening to on the off chance Leslie or somebody that can get me to Leslie is listening, I would love to spend some time with him. When my oldest son was born, he's 29, he'll be 29 in a few months. I brought in a box, a boom box with a cassette tape. And when he was being delivered, Theme for an Imaginary Western was playing. So now his whole life, that's our song, and if we hear it, it's like, the skies open up and like we just sit and listen to that song, so so Leslie's got a special sort of, beyond how much I love him as a player, that's, that of deep nostalgia for me. So,
yeah, that's funny. When my daughter was born, we did the same thing, and Neil Young's Alabama was playing.
Yeah, great tune. Great tune. I mean,
she has no particular affinity with Neil Young, but
yeah, but those little nostalgic moment that's it's in your DNA, man. After that,
well, and you just know it. You're like, this song was playing when you were born.
Yeah, very cool, man. Are you in touch with Skolnick? Because he's in Brooklyn, man.
No, I ran into him one time at we used to get our stuff service at the same music shop, but no, I don't really know him. But he was a super nice guy.
Yeah, I interviewed him. He was great. He's a writer, man. He loves writing. He's an intellectual guy. Yeah, it was a good interview. I enjoyed talking. Yeah. Deep guy, very introspective. Really candid.
I interviewed Duff McKagan one time, and that was really funny because it was it wasn't Loaded, but it was another one of his side bands. I think they were called like Walking. I can't remember the name. You're gonna have to Google it and plug editing me saying the band name. But but it was Duff and his lead singer, and we were talking about something, And the lead singer was like, "Oh, playing with Duff, and you just hear that like Guns N' Roses, the punk rock thing." And I was like, to be fair, like, I was like, we all in the punk scene knew that Duff was punk rock, but we never thought Guns N' Roses. And then I sort of like mentioned like the Farts, which is Duff's old like hardcore band. And he was like, "Oh," Duff was like, "Oh, I'm sure like no one's brought up the Farts to him."
Yeah, that's cool.
Like 30 years or something. And he goes, after the interview, he was like, so wait, so how old are you? And at the time, I guess I was like in my early 40s. He's like, "Okay, so you're too young to have seen like the Misfits and Black Flag." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." I was like, I was the next generation. But it was just funny. He was like, instantly he was like, "Oh, likes talking punk rock." And another great story was like AC/DC. We had Brian and Angus in one time, and it's AC/DC, one of my favorite bands, and they were super cool. But they were like, you got to set up a tea service for them, like have tea, coffee. Because most of the people just come in, and,
like
maybe
it's a British thing, tea and crumpets and shit.
Yeah, they just want like some tea, in case they got to chill.
It's so funny.
But they get there, and the first thing is like Angus Young is unbelievably small.
Yeah,
he's like a small child. He's like the size my daughter was when she was
fucking 12.
7. No, dude. Well, I'm 6'2", so
Oh, you're a big guy.
My kid's pretty.
Just to prepare you in case I see you at St. Vitus. I'm 5'9".
Dude, I'll send you the photo because it's a photo of me, Brian, and Angus, and it looks like they're being attacked by a Yeti. It looks like this giant. It looks like Andre the Giant.
Give me that photo. Maybe I can use that as your picture.
Yeah, use it. And Brian's, doesn't seem abnormally small, but he's not a tall person. Anyhow, I get this whole tea service out, and they show up. And I'm a little, it's AC/DC, man. I fucking like me some AC/DC. I'm a little intimidated. I'm like, "Hi, Mr. Johnson." The guys come in, and I'm showing Brian Johnson, like, "Oh, I got your tea, I got your coffee, there's Earl Grey, there's green tea, milk, and sugar." And he goes, "Oh, stop bragging." And it like gave me a wink, and that was pretty cool. And then also he'd also like in the thing, he'd like be like, "Oh, Mr. Johnson, could we have you do this?" And I'd be like, "All right, me son." Like, Brian Johnson called me his son. Like, I knew he just like meant it like, all right. But it was like, he was pretty cool.
He lives down here. He's like an hour south, like 45 minutes away from me. There's a bunch of guys who live down there in Sarasota.
Right. And the rest of all the old school rock and metal dudes live in Nashville now.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, we had fun. We had fun. But then in 2015, VH1 decided they wanted to kind of shut down VH1 Classic and go in a different direction. So no more of that metal show, no more of that Metal Gear.
All those episodes are on YouTube, though, if people want to watch them, right? If the listeners are a lot.
So, I mean, that Metal Gear stuff's all up.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That Metal Gear
they're
show.
all up there.
Great. Very cool. Awesome. Was there anybody that you interviewed that you can say, like, I don't really know if that was just like a dick, and I don't even know if I want you to say,
There was no one that was an out and out dick.
Okay, that's cool.
Leslie West and Ace Frehley were both a little salty.
Yeah. Well, Ace was probably still using then.
No, he was clean.
Oh, was he?
Clean. But if you think about those guys, neither. Again, they're a little. They've got some things to be a little bitter about. I mean, Leslie West lost a leg, and
this was after his.
Yeah. When I interviewed him, it was after he lost the leg, and I mean, Ace has not had an easy time in life, so yeah, they were a little salty, and And it was funny because I interviewed Gene and Paul too at another time, and they were kind of like, I mean, like, I don't think it's any, like, you know, they were totally cordial and gave me great quotes. But, like, they were still, you know, a little like what you'd expect Gene and Paul to be, a little full of themselves.
Yeah.
They were super nice. I mean, you know, they were, I remember Gene Simmons, I was asking them about the New York Dolls, because I'm a huge New York Dolls fan, and I read that book. I forget what it's called. Nothing to Lose, I think it's called.
Is that about Johansson or about the Dolls?
No, about Kiss.
Okay.
Kiss put out this book like 6 years ago that was all about the early days. It's about like the first 5 years of the band, basically from when they form to when they break with Kiss Alive. And it's a really good book. And I'm actually, despite my age, I am not a huge Kiss fan. But the book really kind of made me start looking at them differently, because I realized they were really in that tradition of like a true New York City band.
From the Bronx.
Yeah, from the Bronx and Queens and Brooklyn. And, to be a true New York City band, you have to be from like more than one borough, and more than one ethnicity.
Ben's rules. I like these, man. Yeah, to be a true New York City, you're a good journalist, because you can come up with, to make a statement like that. That's a very journalistic statement. Because you have to not be afraid to, issue opinions as if they're dogma, and I don't mean that in any kind of imply that there's arrogance or balls or but to be a good journalist, you have to be able to say those things, because you're writing an article. It's your opinion, and you have to be definitive about that.
And also, being I am a music critic, and I'll tell you why one band is better than another band, and then I'll give you the reasons why.
Yeah.
That's not like, well, that's just your opinion. It's like, well, ultimately, I guess they're all just opinions, but a good critic will be like, this band is superior because they did these things, which were important and, qualitatively better than the other bands. And this band is inferior. They could still be good and fun, but it's like they're not as important as this band. But
well, you're also a musician, so you have a little more legs.
Yeah, I mean, it's about having aesthetics.
Yeah,
and also like being. I mean, I'm a music fan, so my opinions are based on my love of rock and roll and music, and it's never like it's never like a bitter thing. If I like knock some band. I'm not like doing it because, I don't know, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm trying to be like, no, but this is what's the thing. These are the guys that you should be celebrating because they were better than these other bands,
Yeah. So
and I'll argue, and I'll argue with someone about it and present my case.
So you were saying about Gene and Paul, they were a little bit full of themselves. And
they were a little full of themselves. And but one of my favorite quotes, this book made me kind of like look at them a little more. I found it more interesting. I found the band themselves more interesting after reading the book. And they were, classic New York band, which they got so big, and with the makeup, they never really like marketed themselves as that. And they left New York City as soon as they made some money. So it's like they were never, in the same way that we think of like the Ramones or the Dolls or Blue Oyster Cult, is like the definitive Long Island band.
Sure.
Or,
Man, do you remember Zebra?
Sure. Yeah.
I interviewed
Long Island. Even though they weren't Long Island, right?
No, they're from New Orleans.
Right, but there was such a huge club scene in Long Island that they like moved there.
Their whole story, I interviewed Randy Jackson, and their whole story, it's like the series of events that had to happen for them to succeed was like more, and I've interviewed close to 500 people now, more than anyone that was like, wow, I could not believe it. It was just incredible. They had an interesting story. Really, he was the only. Did you ever interview somebody like he was the only guy interviewed? Like I was saying beforehand, I don't get starstruck, but his music. I had listened to that Zebra first album so like an infinite number of times that when I was talking to him, it was like I wasn't nervous, but it felt weird. I was like, I remember the enthusiasm I had to listen to Zebra every time I listened to it. So it's like he was so embedded in I had so much emotions invested in his music already.
Nah,
no. But did you ever have that with anybody that you interviewed?
Well, I went to a press conference with Jimmy Page once, and I was totally
holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, and Jimmy Page is, I'd say he's pretty much my favorite guitarist, and it was when they were doing the reissues, and it was funny. We all got a question that was like, I got a good spot in the thing, and you went there, and we listened to a bunch of the new recordings that were being released, like the sort of outtakes, and then there was a Q&A session with Jimmy Page, and I was like, what the fuck am I going to ask? I got to ask something really good. And I was like, my question was, how do you think adding all the new songs to these records changes the stories that those albums told? Which, sounded very highfalutin. And I was like, that's a good question, man. And then Jimmy Page was like, well, I don't think it does. And I was like, fuck.
My God, you sounded just like him.
I struck out with Jimmy Page.
I don't think it does. That's exactly how he talks.
The funniest thing is, then the next day, and I think it was Variety. I get this phone call. So another thing that you have to know, which happened with AC/DC, there was always a weird kind of competition between. There was a VH1 Classic radio entity at we were all owned by Viacom, and then there was VH1 Digital, who I worked for, and then there was the VH1 Classic, the channel, and I was working on VH1 Classic. I was the digital producer, but the radio guys were very not connected with either the channel nor the website. So I get a phone call.
VH1 radio?
Yeah, it was VH1 Classic radio.
So where did that air? On Sirius?
They had this is way back in the day, but it was it's you had to go to the VH1 Classic on tap website, and you could download radio shows.
That's a lot of work to do, man.
Yeah, and the guy was the DJ was this guy Nick Carter, who's still around, who I think is on Sirius now, but it was totally not integrated with the rest of VH1. So I get a phone call. So they were always kind of like the redheaded stepchild in the VH1 Classic sort of family. And I got a phone call from one of their line producers the next day, and she's like, hey, how did you get invited to this Page thing? And I was like, oh, well, I saw he was coming, and I told our people to get me an invite. And they're like, well, we didn't know about it. And I was like, and in a minute, I was like, well, how do you even know I was there? Because these people were on the 21st floor, and I was on the 8th. Or actually, it was even crazy. I was on the 21st floor. They were on the 42nd. I was like, how did you even know I was there? And he was like, well, you didn't see Variety? And I was like, no, I don't read fucking Variety. But she's like, oh, you're quoted in the Variety article about the Jimmy Page Jimmy Page press conference. And it was like, it might have been the Hollywood Reporter, but it was not a regular music. It wasn't even Billboard. It was in the article, it's VH1 Classic digital producer Ben Smith asked Jimmy Page how and I was like, holy shit, I guess it wasn't that bad a question.
That's pretty funny, man.
Even though Jimmy Page blew it off.
Wow. So you really
I was intimidated by Jimmy Page.
Yeah. Yeah. You had a lot of people that you talked to, man.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What were some of the lower points or dark periods you've had to deal with throughout life, and how'd you get through them? You can, whatever you want, music related, business, personal, you can share whatever you want.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
You're such a positive guy. I feel awkward asking you that question.
I've had a pretty good life. I mean, you know, every family's got their, you know, their skeletons in the closet. And, you know, I mean, there's nothing there I want to broadcast.
You want to broadcast on a show. Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, it's like, you know, I've dealt with, you know, just the regular dysfunction of any family. I mean, my family was great, and you know, but every family goes through hard times and troubles, and you know, my mom was always one. There were some that were not great, and you know, I remember my mom one time asking her how she would get through things, and she said, "You know what you do? You wake up in the morning, you sit up in bed, you put your 2 feet on the floor, you put your right foot in front of your left foot." Then you put your left foot in front of your right foot. You just keep going. And, you know, I don't know. I know people that have, like, had horrible, traumatic things happen to them. And there's nothing like that. You know, like, I don't know. Like, you want to hear when I was, like, bullied in 3rd grade? Like, being a kid, you get bullied. Like,
yeah.
Figure out how to not get bullied, you know. Sometimes you figure that out by bullying someone else.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you just get through it. And I can't talk about dark periods of my life, you know. I don't know.
It's all good, man.
I've been the luckiest guy in the world.
Very cool, man. I hope that continues.
Why, thank you, sir. So do I.
And what about like advice? Is there anything that if you could go back and give your younger self advice? Young Benjamin Howard Smith.
Wow, that's pretty deep. That's pretty.
What would you tell yourself that would make your life easier?
I think I'm not sure. See, that's I don't believe in that. I don't believe that telling me. I think it would just change some of my decisions and what I've done in life, but I don't think it would make anything easier. You don't know. I mean, that's the whole thing of, you know, I try to avoid thinking of what if, yeah. Right. And what if we'll put you in an early grave?
No, I don't. Okay. So I agree with you. So like, is there something that if you would have known it, you would have been a little smarter about something, you know, cause I agree with you. You can't go backwards and because you don't know, you might've done what if and made a left turn instead of a right turn and got hit by a car. So I'm totally on board, but there are certain things that probably could have made your life easier, you know, little things even.
Oh, you know, I think I was certainly pretty insecure as a teenager, as are most teenagers.
Yeah.
You know, if I could say anything to 16-year-old Ben, I would have said, like, be more confident. None of this stuff matters, which actually I kind of knew back then none of it mattered. But, you know, I wish I had, like, just, you know, been a little more fearless and put myself out there more, whether it was, you know, talking to girls or, you know, being more assertive, playing music or this and that. I mean, I think, you know, again, insecurity is a thing that everyone struggles with, I think, pretty much.
Especially as a teenager, man.
Yeah. And, hold on a second, I gotta yell at my cat. Cut it out! And,
I think I'm going to keep that in just for reality purposes.
You should, because my cats, like, I love them, but they claw up everything in this house.
Yeah. I have a couple.
But, yeah, you know, I think it's like, and also just be brave and go for it. Take a few more risks. I think I would probably tell myself if I could go back in time.
So, man, thank you. Let's talk about gear for a few minutes.
Sure.
You just showed me your telly before. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other couple of guitars would round out your top three?
Well, top three. I mean, my number one guitar is my Les Paul. It's a 76.
Oh, that's got to be weigh a ton.
You know, that's why it's the number one. It doesn't. I mean,
really?
For a Les Paul, it's pretty light. And I mean, it's definitely not an 8 or 9 or 10 pounder.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's killer. And, you know,
what color is it? A standard classic?
Tobacco Sunburst.
Okay. Oh yeah, just like yeah.
Yeah, And my buddy Nat, who was in Sweet Diesel with me, it was another one of my non-genetic brothers. I remember I played all through Sweet Diesel. I played this black Les Paul Studio, and I've always been a pretty I bought this guitar, I will make this guitar work. I bought this amp, this is my amp, I will make. I've never been like the new guitar every month. I've had, now I have a bunch, but it's been a slow accumulation.
You're pretty utilitarian about them.
Yeah, very much. Which again is kind of like that punk rock thing.
Yeah.
And also just my general philosophy in life, make it work.
Yeah.
Make it work. And, but one day Nat said to me, and this was after Sweet Diesel broke up, he said, "You know what? You're a fresh-ass guitarist, and you need a fresh-ass guitar." And I was like, "You're right, Nat. I do." And it's funny. I had started dating my wife, and she actually had a Tobacco Sunburst Les Paul.
Your wife plays guitar?
Plays guitar and bass. Yeah,
that
played
is
in
wild.
Yeah, played in punk bands in Boston in the early 80s.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And
does your daughter play?
No, not really. She likes music a lot. And she's got pretty good taste, but she's not really she doesn't play. But she had this Tobacco Sunburst Les Paul that I was really into, and then I saw this guitar in a store window one day when I was out down on the Lower East Side on Rivington Street.
Rivington Guitars?
Rivington Guitars, the original store over on Rivington Street. And it was $12.99, and I pulled it down. It was $19.99, and I played it, and I was like, "Yeah, man, yeah." I think I'm gonna buy this guitar. And then I actually called Nat, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I think I'm gonna buy this guitar at Rivington Street." And I was like, "I'm taking your advice." And he was like, "The Tobacco Sunburst one?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "How much is it?" I was like, "Yeah, it's like $12.99." And he's like, "Yo, they just dropped the price to $9.99." So I was like, on the phone with him. I was like, "I gotta run over there." I was at work. I was at I would have been at SonicNet, and I went to the bank and got out $1,000 cash.
Right.
I went in and played it some more. I was like, I don't know why. I was like, even though I was going for what I thought was already a $300 price break, I still was like, "Oh, I'm going to haggle."
That's a New York thing, man. You know the deal. It's and they know the deal too. They're not expecting you to just pay.
Right. So I got it for, I was like, "Would you do 900 cash?" And they were like, "We'll do 900 cash, but you got to pay tax."
Tax, yeah.
I was like, boom. And that was it was that's really.
That's a pretty good price for a 76.
It was 99. It was 1999.
Yeah, but still, it was 23 years old.
Yeah, it was a good price.
That's a pretty good price for a standard.
Guitar, man, it's like the thing. I believe in. I'm a little superstitious, and I believe in. There's more to this world than what we see with our eyes, and I don't know. It's like that guitar came to me.
Good.
It's like my house came to me.
Like your what?
Like the house that I live in.
Okay, how did that come to
my wife and I looked at this house and we put in a bid, and then we found out we didn't have the money, and then the people months later came to us and were like, we've lowered the price, and we were like, we were at a stage where we were like, "Nah, we can't buy a house," and they made it so it's we couldn't say no.
Oh, cool.
With the guitar, it was like. It came to me it had to come here.
I'm totally on board. When things are meant to be, man, they're not stressful.
Yeah.
They're very organic, very fun, very natural. Because I've done shit both ways, and it's much nicer the easy way.
Yeah.
When you sort of can somehow wait or feel or vibe with what's going on.
Well, I'm also a pretty frugal person. So, though, interestingly enough, the older I get and the less money I have, the less frugal I become. But but I'm a pretty frugal person. So, it's it was a big deal for me to drop $1,000 on a guitar. there's a whole other side of my brain that's like, well, you could just use any $600 guitar and make it sound good, and it's about the playing, not. But,
yeah, it is and it's not. But I mean, there's a difference between $1,000 guitar and a $500 guitar. That's the bottom line. Even it doesn't mean you got to buy it, but there is a difference usually in anything. You get what you pay for. The most part, you do get what you pay for, especially in business, man.
But that guitar is that Les Paul. That's the Brought-Low guitar. I mean, that's on all the records. I brought it on all the tours. I mean, I play other guitars on the records, but I would say at least 70 to 80% of all the guitar playing on the 3 Brought-Low records is that Les Paul. And
I got to tell you, it sounds humbucker, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised.
And it's funny. It's got a super distortion in it, which came when I bought it.
That's weird. But so it's not original pickups, or is it like an extra mod?
No, not original pickups. It's not the. It would have been the T-tops. It actually came with 2 super distortions.
Oh, that's wild.
It had a super distortion in the neck, which
that's weird.
Not a great sounding thing, but the bridge pickup sounds killer. And it's one of those guitars that other people that it's like not, it's Norland era, and it's a pancake body, and it's all these things that make it not collectory. And everyone who picks it up is like, this is an awesome guitar.
Awesome, man. That's very cool.
It's just that I think those guitar, instruments have souls, and it was just a good day when that one was put together.
What's number 2 and 3?
I would say number 2 is actually, I have a Gibson SJ200 acoustic, and that would probably be, and there's a funny story with that guitar, which is when my brother John started playing guitar again, he bought this guitar on eBay. And he was out of town, and he had it sent to his work. And I was living in Manhattan then, and I lived like 10 blocks away from his office. And he was like, calls me. He's like, I just bought this Gibson SJ200 on eBay, but I'm out of town, and it's coming to the office. Can you go to the office? And he's like, I have 24 hours to return it. And he's like, go to the office, play it, and make sure it's a keeper. So I was like, yeah, sure.
Where were you living in the city? God, it's so expensive. If you don't mind me asking.
Oh, yeah. Well, I lived on 16th Street between 5th and 6th I was that's where my wife lived, and we lived there until 2007.
Okay, so let me get my bearings. So 16th Street, just north of Union Square. That's a pretty nice area. Just
west of Union Square.
Yeah, north and a little bit north, a little bit west. A really nice area.
Right. It wasn't that nice an area when my wife bought it.
Interesting.
In the late 80s.
That's weird. I'm surprised.
And she bought it off her mom, so she got a sweetheart deal.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
It wasn't. I mean, because that's really where I went to school. It was downtown. It was kind of. It wasn't the Lower East Side, but it was like
a little grungy.
And you had a lot of homeless people in Union Square, and then at night it would be nowhere. Like there was nothing there.
Yeah. Because now there's all those there's tons of restaurants, but
yeah, but it didn't really start until the mid '90s.
Yeah. Okay.
Like even late '90s, because I would go up there to buy my school books.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. Do you know where Rosa Mexicano is? It's not real far from there. It's like on 18th Street. So I think we were in the city last year, maybe in May. And so we went to Rosa Mexicano, and I kind of, we had a little buzz on, and then I went out, made a right. So I was headed west, and I eat pretty healthy usually. And there's a salad joint. So I go in there, and man, this was like a space age shit. Everybody was moving in unison so much. And it was so much so they all looked like robots. And, so, to the point where I thought, man, I must be really fucked up. I didn't think I was that buzzed, but everybody was moving, and I said something in there like, oh my God, they're all moving together. And it was like a movie, like everybody around me just looked at me like
Right.
I was like saying something heretical, or I was a heretic. Like, how dare you in the house of worship? It was really weird. So I said to my wife, "You got to go there again, like before we have a drink," because
Right.
I couldn't believe it was the weirdest thing, man. I had great salad, but it was weird. Sorry, man. It was just a very bizarre place.
It's pretty strange. So yeah, we were living there, and I was living there when September 11th happened, and like
Wow.
I said, it's like it wasn't an expensive place when she bought it, and then when we sold it, it was like we got a ton of money for it, and we were able to buy a house out in Queens.
Good. Was 9/11? That is not that far away, really. So I would imagine you had some dust or something up there, or no?
Well, the dust blew it. It was east wind, and it blew it all over Brooklyn.
Okay, yeah, because that's not. I mean, it's far, but it's not that far.
Well, you could smell it.
Yeah,
you could smell it up there. I mean, I came outside right as Tower 1 fell.
Holy smokes, man!
Yeah, that was a crazy day.
Wow, yeah. So you went to play the Gibson?
Yeah. I went to. He was like, "Go play it and make sure it's a keeper." And I played it. I was like, "Son of a bitch! This is fucking." I should tell him it's no good, and I'll just buy it off him. But he had that guitar for years, and then he actually got really. He's got a great collection now, and he started getting really into like old acoustics, and bought them just before they started. I mean, I guess some of them have gotten pretty pricey, but at the time you could still get like pretty crazy old like acoustics for, I mean, not Martins and not like an old SJ200, but like you can get a lot of really cool stuff for a couple $1,000. So he got so into like, he's got like a 40s J45, and he was looking to sell this guitar. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll buy that off you. And I mean, it sounds like a piano, man. I mean, it sounds huge.
Do you write on that? When you usually write, do you write on that or your electric?
Well, yeah, I write on it. Yeah, I write a lot.
Very cool.
I only got that about 10 or 12 years ago. So I haven't, like, a lot of stuff was written on other guitars on the first couple records.
But it's been seasoned as a guitar now, 10, 12 years. It must sound really good.
Yeah, I think it's like a 96 or it's a 90s, but it's a little big actually, and which is kind of like, and I think that whole price differential thing, acoustics is where it really becomes apparent. I think the difference between $1,000 and $2,000 electric can be somewhat surprisingly minuscule, but the difference between $1,000 acoustic and a $2,000 acoustic and a $5,000 acoustic is pretty. It's immediately apparent. That would be number 2.
And what would be number 3?
Well, number three. Let me look around. I mean, I don't have too many more guitars after that. I would say, I mean, if I'm going by the ones that I like playing the most, number 3 is this parts caster I put together a couple of years ago, and I have it right next to my bed, and it just plays like a dream. And my friend, I have a lot of friends out in Ohio, and Columbus, Ohio is a place with a lot of guitar makers, and I can't tell you who made the guitar body because they didn't like the way the bodies came out. So they were selling them off cheap for $100 a pop.
Oh my God.
And I was like, and it was like ash, and it looked great. It was like a 52 style telly body. And I was like, $100, I'd go out to a bar, I could spend $100. Like, of course I'll buy one. So, but then I had this guitar body. I was like, what do I do now? And again, through another friend in Ohio, through the same friend, there's another guitar maker guy in Ohio that made us necks for like $200, and it's just a great neck. It's I don't go for the whole macho baseball bat neck thing. I like them, and I don't like them really thin. I like them, right down kind of the middle. And this is a great neck like that. And then he put like big frets on it, more Gibson style frets.
Yeah.
It's a great neck. And then the pickups I got from a company, Brandon Wound. And I did it like Keith Richards style with a humbucker in the neck. And then the bridge, I wanted a really like kind of loud broadcastery bridge pickup. And then I wanted a pretty mellow PAF style humbucker. And
so you got one humbucker or two?
One humbucker in the neck and a single coil in the bridge.
Okay, very cool. But it's a PAF style humbucker, you're saying.
But Brandon Wound is based in Ohio too. It's like the Ohio parts caster. And then the pick guard also came from this guy, Pick Guardian, who's in Ohio. So
I know that guy. He does a podcast, I think.
Does he?
Pick guard. No, you know what it is? I heard him on a podcast a long time ago. He did he was interviewed on someone's show. That's what it was. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. That's a pretty specific name. The Pick Guardian.
Like Ohio parts. And it's actually kind of fun because it's like my, all my bands always played in Ohio a lot. And my mom's family is all from northeastern Ohio, so it's kind of like cool little symmetry.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, well, I go there and I have these roots there, and now I have a guitar from there.
Yeah,
so
that's cool,
it's pretty cool. And it's funny. I don't even plug it in, Craig. It sits next to my bed, and I pick it up every morning, and
You play usually first thing when you wake up?
I wouldn't say every morning. I mean, if I'm waking up early to get my kid out the door, I'm downstairs making eggs and tea. But I'll come up and then try to, at the very least, I try to just do like the circle of fifths.
Yeah, sure.
Once a day, just good muscle memory exercise. And I find like as I get older, I need to, and this really started when I turned 40. Like I both wanted to get better as a player, and then I also felt I needed to make more of an effort as a player. Like I all through my 20s and 30s, I never had to like practice to be on top of my game. But now I feel I need to, just to keep everything running.
Man, you're only 7 years younger than me. You look a lot younger than me. So keep whatever. What are you doing? What's the secret? The anti-aging secret.
My first trick is I never exercise.
That's my problem. I'm in the gym too much. Shit. There you go.
And then my second trick is I eat whatever I want.
Yeah, I got it all backwards.
And then my third trick is I try to, as with everything, I'll say this: I don't eat a lot of sugar, even though I'm totally overweight. But I don't eat a lot of sugar. I don't eat any white sugar really. I don't drink coffee anymore. I drink tea.
Interesting.
And but I'm not sure that the coffee. I stopped drinking coffee because I realized I stopped drinking it like, I don't know, 6 years ago or something. I realized I had a lot less heartburn, like radically.
As you get older, man, coffee does give you heartburn. Because I find myself now popping a Rolaids type of things once in a while, and I looked it up, and I'm like, because I eat really clean, and I'm saying, what the hell? Do I eat spices? Yeah, once in a while, and then they said coffee. I'm like, man, that's it, and it's got to be it. So I try to slow down after like 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But we sound like two old men here. Oh, my coffee! I stopped drinking and I had heartburn.
It was giving me the agita.
This is horrible, man. Let's move on. This is depressing. You can't drink coffee. Everybody is tuned in to listen to this.
Right. But that's the stuff I like hearing on podcasts.
Oh my God! Yeah.
No, I'll tell you the only other thing, and then we'll get off the subject.
Yeah. I
eat pretty organic. I don't really have a lot of I don't really mess with a lot of processed.
Oh God, I don't eat any of that crap. Yeah,
I don't know. So that's the only thing. You look okay.
That was like that was the worst convincing argument I've ever heard on this show. You look okay.
It's funny. Unfortunately, it's like when you're in your 40s, like you especially if you're like out of borough guy, it's like you got friends, they start like dying of like heart attacks. It's like I was worried that it was going to be like all my rock and roll friends that were going to like die early from like drugs and drinking and spending all their times in bars. It's not. It's all the like out of borough guys that are like firemen and work. Yeah. But it's funny when I go to these like wakes. I see these guys and I was like, what did you like? You look exactly the same from high school. What do you do? And I'm like,
I never exercise. I eat whatever I want, but I eat organic.
Right.
We'll have to get you in some like Cosmopolitan magazine and writing an article on it. You're a journalist. How I looked, 40, looks 25. You get a headline like that, man. Again, this is like not guitar. I tell you, once I stopped drinking, like eating like white sugar and coffee, because I gave that up when I was still drinking coffee, I noticed I had a lot less joint pain. Speaking of like middle-age problems, like I used to have all this joint pain, and then I stopped, and then it like went away, and I was trying to think like, what the hell have I done? And this was again before I gave up the coffee. I was like, the only thing I realized I was like, I don't put sugar in my coffee anymore. Man, I'm not surprised. I've read articles consistently over the last 10 years about how bad specifically processed foods and white sugar. So I'm not surprised, man. Yeah. Not one little bit. I don't ever eat that shit. So
here we go. We've covered
health, fitness, music. This is like
we even touched on politics a little.
Yeah, this is like a fucking episode of Reader's Digest. My God, what the hell's going on? Man, Desert Island Discs, top 3, no particular order, just for today.
Just for today, Led Zeppelin 4. 3 is really hard for me to do, but Zeppelin 4, I'm just going to go off the top of my head. The Who live at Leeds.
Great record.
And I'm going to say today it's going to be the Stooges' Raw Power.
Another great record. Man, I'm trying to get I'd like to get Carlos Alomar on my show. Do you know him? He did
with Bowie.
Yeah. Well, he did the guitar on Lust for Life.
Right.
Yeah. He's in New York too. I'm gonna have to source him out.
I bet he's pretty easy to get and pretty cool.
Yeah, I would think he'd be pretty cool. I've interviewed a number of guys that played for Bowie and Iggy, and everybody's been pretty cool.
Yeah.
Favorite New York City food? But it's not white sugar. I know that.
I guess I like pizza more than bagels. And what's the third New York City food? It's all about the ethnicity.
Cheesecake.
Is that really considered New York?
I don't know, but we used to go to Carnegie Deli. I remember going one time, we took all the kids up and I went like 1:00 in the morning with one of my sons. We just walked over there and we had like, they're just gigantic portions. And we had a giant piece of cheesecake, but they're closed now.
Yeah. Oh, a good chocolate egg cream, man. So they're very
Gems. You got to go to Gem Spas. A couple of places, a couple of little candy stores.
Right, Gem Spas got them, and Eisenberg's on Fifth Ave, down in like the 20s. I would say another essential New York food is your classic Boricua rice and beans, roast chicken, pork chops spot.
Yeah.
Like the classic Puerto Rican. And it's like, the Dominicans have a version of it, and the Cuban. You go into a Cuban, Dominican, and Puerto Rican place, it's all the same thing. But it's like, to me, it's like the classic Puerto Rican rice, beans, yellow rice, red beans. Actually, I realized, I got really religious about those for a while, and I realized if you went in, it was funny. It's like always eat what the people of the thing of whatever the they eat.
Yeah.
And it's like I realized like a lot of like if you went to a lot of those places, white people always get yellow rice, black beans. But if you like go in and you're like go in with like, friends are like Dominican or Puerto Rican, they always get white rice and red beans. So I started doing that too. I don't know. I mean, I love yellow rice also. So Puerto Rican roast chicken with rice and beans. That's also up there. But pizza, it's got to be pizza.
Pizza, man. I'm the same, dude. It's really funny because I got this article today about some Southern food in New York, and I just forwarded it to Ann, my wife, and I said, hey, there's a couple of places up in Harlem that are really popular on fried chicken. I rarely eat fried food, but I'm like in the city, I'm on vacation. So I said, hey, do you think we should go here, or should we stop by here, or should we just eat pizza and bagels? Because like everybody's like, oh, New York's so expensive. It's like, nah, you're eating the wrong. You're eating the wrong food. You don't spend $50 on breakfast. You go to this place and you get a muffin or a bagel. Then you sit out in the park and eat it. Best decision you ever made?
I don't know, man. I try not to think of things in terms of like the best decision or the best time of my life, or again, I mean, I swear to God, I have plenty of faults, and I'm not like quite as zen as I might sound in this interview, but like that is a thing where I try not to. I mean, the best decision, I guess, playing guitar. I don't know. You know what? Playing guitar. Decided to play guitar because through playing guitar, I saw the world, or America and parts of England and Scotland. I met my wife. I met girlfriends. I made some of the best friends of my life. So if I'm going to is that qualifying or quantifying it? But whatever it is, playing guitar, man. Playing guitar has like changed my life for the better in every way.
Very cool. How long have you been? You've been with your wife a long time, no?
Been together 20 years.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's really good. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I was the best man at a wedding a couple years ago, and I gave the best man speech, and one of my lines in the best man speech was like, "Marriages are work." And afterwards, my friend Adam came up to me. It was my friend Adam Suerte, who's done a lot of artwork for the Brotlow. He came up and he was like, "Man, when you said marriages," or I said marriages are hard work. And it's like, man, when you said marriages are hard work, every guy in that church was like, yeah,
man. Well, no, I mean, so, you know what someone told me, and I've always, I think this is true. He said, your marriage is like a business. If you stop working it, it stops working. And I think I think any relationship is that. I think I found that to be really true. I mean, it's hard. Sometimes it is hard, but what's not hard? You're with somebody 24/7, unless your partner is a doormat and then even that's hard because like, what's in it for you? I mean, unless you got like, that's your thing, but you know what I mean? So, you got to compromise and work together.
Compromise. You're trying to build things together. And I remember when I like decided to propose, and in my mind, the easier path was not doing that.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I think again, you have this sort of anti-authoritarian rock and roll mindset where you're like, oh, settling down, marriage. That's like, we're told like, oh, be a rebel until you die, and all this, stuff that I mostly think is kind of horse shit. And, that, you're just doing this norm thing, and like, were you just being like your parents? And I remember like realizing like, no, this is the hard choice. This is the hard path.
Yeah. Getting
married, having a kid. That's the hard, it's the harder choice. And it's not for everyone. And God bless. I don't think there's one right path for.
No, God, no.
No. But we're here now.
This should be funny. Tell me something about yourself people would be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
Well, the common one I always go to is that I have a degree in poetry.
Yeah, that is funny and a little odd.
which being a writer and a lyric writer is not. It's not like it doesn't make no sense. But when you tell people like, yeah, I have a degree in poetry. I mean, I guess
what was going through your mind, son?
Well, I guess technically I have a degree in creative writing, but all the creative writing I did to get me that degree was poetry. You know, and it's even weirder than that because I was never a big poetry reader as a kid, nor as an adult, and I would even like say like, you know, one of my things I always wish I read more and was more well read, even though I know a lot about books and authors. But I went to this class when I transferred to Eugene Lang. You know, you could go and sort of like meet the teachers before you signed up for classes. It was a class. It was called lyric poetry, and my thinking was like, well, I write song lyrics, so lyric poetry, and they're totally different things actually. In one sense. And I went and met with the professor, a great poet named Kurt Lampkin. But he was totally kind of blew me off, like at the thing. And I was just like, oh, well, fuck you. Now I'm totally taking this class. So I was just like, he pissed me off. So I was like, you know, I'm going to take your poetry.
That's like totally...
Like, oh, yeah.
Opposite the what do you call it vibe, the karma vibe.
Right. Well, you know, I do have a weird kind of like anti-author, you know, it's like I definitely have a like, if you tell me this, if you say you can't do it, then you're going to show me you can. Yeah. If you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to try to do it. And if you tell me to do something, I'm not going to do it. I totally have that in me, despite my easygoing nature. And, yeah, he was just like, yeah, man, this class, it's not right for you. You need to, like, do another class first. And I was like, nah. I was like, because it was actually part 2 of a 2. It was like, there was lyric poetry 1 and lyric poetry 2, and it was lyric poetry 2. And I was like, nah, man, no, I'm in this. And then I really enjoyed it. You know, I enjoyed writing it, and it is a thing. And then I had another great teacher named Indra Namarthanayagam.
Holy shit! Yeah, that's
he's Sri Lankan writer and poet, and you know, I learned great things from them that I still use, whether it's song lyric writing, whether it's writing articles, and I think the thing about poetry that people don't realize is that it's all about the music of the words. And the sound, you know, that's why like poetry slams became popular, because poems are almost majority of poems are meant to be read aloud. They're songs without music. So, you know, it really felt familiar to me. And, you know, I remember Indran once had a lesson where he was like, treat everything you do as poetry. Like, treat every letter you write as a poem. Like, not meaning like you send your friend a poem, but it's like put the same care into the words you choose, the sound of those words, the meaning of those words, and everything. You know, it's served me well.
That's my favorite poet right there, man.
Bukowski?
Yeah, I've read almost I've read at least half of what he's put out. I grew up in a very middle blue collar negative environment like he did, so I understand everything he's saying. I really do. And the way he puts it is very is so guttural for me, from my perspective. I really appreciate that. I'm glad I don't think like that and harbor that anger, but I understand it. Right. You know? And last question. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a natural part of aging?
Oh, man. How has my personality changed? Well, my wife would tell you I'm crankier.
Really?
I don't think I'm crankier. I think I have, and I'm sure like every old cranky guy, you know, I have less of a tolerance.
Get off the grass.
I have less of a tolerance for bullshit. I would say that's the thing, and I don't know if it makes me angry more, but you know, I guess, you know, it's always the struggle. I think it's important to stay positive and to realize the blessings of life, and at the same time be a realist about the failings of, you know, humanity as a whole. And, you know, it's, I think it's a difficult time right now in many ways, because I think people are very, selfish. So how does this, like, I'm trying to think, like, yeah, I would say I have less of a tolerance for, bullshit and the lies that are kind of spread, whether it be politicians or, you know, I mean, I like the social, I mean, I'm trying to not sound like the cranky old guy, but like whenever I read like influencer, you know, like,
yeah, I mean, they have a lot of Facebook followers. Yeah. It's kind of,
and look, I'm a guy who makes his living writing articles for online, and I have social media profiles, and I understand that game, but I think there is, you know, I think there's many problems with social media, but I guess I don't know. But I don't know that but I don't know that that's a big change. Like, as I'm like psychoanalyzing myself with like 1 minute, you know, like I've always been a, like, call bullshit when it's bullshit. Like, I've always been like the little kid in the Emperor's New Clothes, you know, who's like, yeah, but he's naked.
Yeah.
You know, and like, it's just it does. It at once bothers me more, and I'm also more resigned about it.
Right. It's interesting.
Heavy note to end on, Craig.
What's that? No. You know, it's interesting. I feel very lucky because I've always called bullshit, but now I don't. It's not that I have less tolerance. I don't care. I don't let anything bother me now. And I think that was, for me, I was been deliberate on purpose.
Well, yeah.
I feel lucky because I spent a lifetime being bothered by so much shit I should never have been thinking of. And all of a sudden, like a few years back, I just said, why am I doing this? Done. And it was like flipping a freaking switch. I don't know how just trying to get rid of the stress. It causes a lot of stress. For me, it did anyway.
Right.
Dude, let me tell people where to find you on social media. And
just decrying.
Yeah. First of all, it's Benjamin Howard Smith, aka Ben Smith. The name of the band is The Brought Low. 3 LPs and an EP. If you're on Spotify, Apple, man, they're great. Really good music. I can't emphasize that enough. If you like British blues, you know, it's just great music, really good rock and roll. I mean, really good music. They are starting to do shows again. And let me tell you where you could find Ben on Instagram and Facebook. It's under The Brought Low, BROUGHT Low. Also, you can find them on smallstonerecords.com, on the Bandcamp from Small Stone Records. Ben's also got a really cool Instagram page about living in Queens called Queensers, Queenzers. And on Twitter, you could find his New York stuff at BHSmithNYC. And I will hope that you guys do a 4th album, and I'd love to listen to it and have you back on the show. Really, any final last words of wisdom? Final comments?
No, I can't think of anything. It's just really great to be playing shows again, and you know, hopefully we get to our lives together to put out another record.
I hope you do, man. And I'm glad you're playing music, and I'm glad you're doing what you do. I really like your band, man.
Thanks, man.
Hope you have another record. Thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it. Everybody, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Ben Smith for spending time with us. Support The Brought Low. Support Ben Smith's music. Find him on Instagram and Facebook. The Brought Low, BROUGHTLOW. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.